Tottenham 0, Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. I was manifesting there. United have lost the Europa League final to Tottenham Hotspur in a stinking game of football that from the very first whistle was nasty and fighting and scrapping, and it wasn't good football. It was ugly, and all of those things undid United. I think United were struggled to keep up with Tottenham's physicality, and once the goal went in, we really struggled. I've got Scotty and Tom here as well. I'll start with you, Scotty. How are you feeling at the minute?
Massively deflated. I think that defeats are easy to take in a cup final if you're overrun by the opposition. I think it was the sort of manner that the defeat came because Spurs weren't great at all. You know, I mean they had a tactic that they played to their strengths in the second half, but the goal that went in, you know, it didn't come off a run of great play. They didn't have a massive amount of possession. I think we were more than double their passes in the first half. They didn't have any great shots on target, and it's just this feels like the culmination of a season, and it's bittersweet. Not even sweet. It's just it's fitting of how shit the season's been really, and for us to lose the final to Spurs. Just them words, aren't they? Really?
It's absolutely mad, isn't it? And Tom, like that game tonight, I don't know if I'm being. I'm looking at the reflection and coming up with different storylines or whatever, because the game has ended now. We can paint whatever picture we want as to how we got here. But I felt, and we said this in the first half, Tottenham, once they got the goal, they were able to be more physical. They were stopping the play. They were fouling. They were aggressive. They sort of almost played the kind of Jose Mourinho style. You know, we're going to stop this being a football match, basically, and it worked. Were we kind of outthought a little bit tonight, or do you think it was, a little bit of luck and, they've got the goal that way?
Well, the first goal was massive, wasn't it? And they've got that bit of luck that's gone for them, which has allowed them to play the game the way that I got the impression they wanted to.
I completely agree.
It's been vindicated now, hasn't it? But I feel like it's almost a bit of a risk with the way they approached it. And in the first half, at times, I thought, okay, Tottenham are here. They're not getting settled in the game, and we were passing the ball around, completing a lot more passes, and I thought we'd settle, and that'd be the story of it as the game opened up in the second half. Obviously, as you say, they get the goal, and then the second half was just a battle. And I do, you see when teams try and do that, where we'll kick and we'll get physical, and normally it's up against a real technical side that have got ideas and imagination, and that's the way of leveling it. And I think that maybe it's a bit naive to think that we could stand up to that and play the ball around and play ourselves into the game. In the back of my mind, I know we talked off camera about Stick Maguire up front earlier, and it's just a bit embarrassing. But I think seeing that last few minutes, when the ball was actually in play, when it looked a bit desperate, I just wish I'd seen that for 35 minutes instead of letting the game drift to 75 minutes before it felt like we were prepared, prepared to accept what we needed to do to get back into it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the risk with that is, are we leaving ourselves short defensively? Do you have to be sure that Tottenham are playing that sit back and let us have the ball stuff? Because I think for the first 10-15 minutes of the second half, it was a little bit more back and forth. But as the game went on, we said it after about 60 minutes, didn't we? They're playing like it's the last 10 minutes, and maybe we should have reacted a little bit more quickly. Other than this, people going up front, do you think United could have approached this game differently tonight? Do you think there was a problem, or do you just think it was an even game and they got a bit more luck than we did?
No, I mean, listen, Tottenham played their own game, and there are teams throughout history that are revered for playing to the dark arts. Atletico Madrid don't always play in a particularly attractive game, but the end game is to either get the 3 points or get the trophy, and you've got to give credit to Spurs for sticking to a game plan and it working. My issue is that Manchester United didn't have an alternative to whatever they had set out to do, because whilst in the first 15-20 minutes we thought, this is a bit different, we do seem like we've got some sort of patterns of play and we were going down the flanks. It never really materialised into any sort of dominance, or we felt like we were the team on top. It was far too patchy and scatty in parts. And then when they scored, there was not enough rationale or evidence from the first half to say, right, okay, well, we're going to emulate this again for the first 20 minutes before making a substitution in the second half. And that just completely bewilders me. I mean, I'm not going to just dig out Højlund in this, but it wasn't working for him in the first half in the same way it's not worked for him for the majority of the season. Why are we sticking with him later on? stick Harry Maguire up front, or if the ball's into the box, why could we not get them into Højlund when he was there? We had the same personnel on the pitch, but a different sort of target man. There's just a lot of question marks there, and I still believe Amram is the man to take us forward. But his decisions like leaving substitutions till far too late, bringing Mainoo on with 2 minutes to go, it just didn't make sense to me. And there's so many players that came up short tonight. I suppose the biggest culprit was the captain. And I mean, and if there's not a game when you need your captain to stand strong, and Bruno Fernandes was massively disappointing today in every single thing that he did. He was like huffed and puffed. There was very little sort of end product or assists and stuff. And it's just 20 years ago, the Glazers bought Manchester United, and I remember at the time I gave them my season tickets, and no one thought like the end game would be as low as it's going to get now. We're probably going to end up 17th on Sunday, and we've just become a club with a contradiction of failed ideologies, and whether that's the boardroom or whether that's the managers, and that's the team now, because it's like such a puzzle of players that have come together from different sort of managerial and strategies and stuff, and where we go from here, God only knows. But I just think it's shit tonight, but all things considered, we've been shit and we ended up with shit.
I think that's the positive spin, is that, you know, the manager's been pretty steadfast in saying, don't get carried away, a win here wouldn't save our season. And so it hasn't done.
But and to flip that though, how much does a loss hurt us? Because obviously a win wouldn't save the season. It'd still be a bad season with a great moment or some great moments. How much does it hurt United and in particular Amram, do you think, losing this? Obviously the fallout is yet to be fully known, but as we see Tottenham getting the medals put over their necks, it is a sight not many of us are used to seeing. You know, Tottenham winning trophies. How damaging is it to lose to these?
I don't know. I think even if you won it tonight, I think the risk of almost just falling away so badly in the league and the amount of defeats we've racked up, I think people would very quickly start talking about that again when the league started again next season. And that's so I think regardless, the pressure is huge on him in the early part of next season. I don't want to downplay it. I mean, it would have been great, amazing to win. You know, it would have been such a bonus, a really fortunate thing to be playing in the Champions League next year, which, to be honest, we're probably not ready to play in. And I don't know. It's
these sort of successes, and I sort of get his point regarding like it doesn't save a season, because in the past we've had decent sort of league positions or cup wins, and then the following year we've taken a massive step back, and we've become like a yo-yo club. So trying to put a positive spin on tonight is that we probably would put a nice sort of golden plaster over a really shitty scab, rather than sort of looking at the problem for exactly what it is. Players that have played tonight may have got a little bit of reprieve. We were talking before the game, like if Højlund scores 3, does he get more time in the future? Well, now the evidence is laid bare. There is nowhere at all for the board or players or anyone to hide about how bad the situation is.
I mean, there will be a sort of starkness and a reality sinking in. Pardon me. If it wasn't already there about certain players, you know, obviously United have been awful this season, and maybe there is a benefit in there is no hiding anything now. Nothing, like you said, you can't pretend that something is what it isn't. You can't pretend that there's this pedigree there, or that with the right this we could have done that. It's just awful. Not just have we lost to Tottenham, but we've lost to the team that's 17th in the Premier League. You know, I know we're equally as bad, but and this is the 4th time we've lost to them this season. We are losing to some of the worst teams in the league. We lost to Tottenham when we lost to Tottenham. They're below us. We lost to West Ham when they were below us. We lost to Wolves, who have been one of the worst teams this season as well. All in recent weeks, and this is, like we said, the 4th time United have lost to Tottenham this season. We can't find a way round it. We can't find a way to sort them out. And they got 1 goal, and let's be honest, it was a fucking lucky, shocking goal. The ball came in, a little bit too much space, but the ball goes past Brennan Johnson. He isn't scoring that. The ball goes past him, hits Luke Shaw's arm, and basically bounces into the goal. Johnson gets a final flick on it as it crosses the line. That's what did it tonight. But Ronaldo said it perfectly. It doesn't take much to beat Man United. And in fact, it takes so little to beat Manchester United that's one of the things that we need to fix. Not just how bad we are at beating teams, but how good we are at losing to teams. Because what have Tottenham done tonight? They've had 1 shot on target. They've had 3 shots in total. They've had 27% of the possession. And they've won the game. And let's be honest, they've won it relatively comfortably. Because United had a couple of decent chances. We've had 16 shots that have amounted to 0.5 xg.
There's not much you can look at and say, "Oh, we got away with it there." If you're Tottenham, we were lucky
they got
not to concede.
They got very lucky,
there.
and United by same side of the opposite side of the same coin have been a little bit unlucky. But at no point did United truly look like getting back into the game. Luke Shaw had a good header. What else? What else was there? Ahmad had the one that went wide. These are chances that happen in games.
Yeah.
But it wasn't we allowed them, or they were able to, or whatever you want to say. They sort of beat us up, and they played like the more mature team. They played like the team tonight that are used to winning trophies. They went physical, they went direct, they did all the things you have to do to cross the line in big games. And this whole Ange thing of, press high up the pitch no matter what, 9 men against Chelsea and we'll just get battered. They didn't do any of that tonight. No. They did what they needed to do to win the game. And they've won the game. And at the end of the day, when we look back and was it a lucky goal or not, when you win trophies, that is the only thing that matters. And unfortunately, we've not been able to do that. It's just absolutely gutting. We've got loads of super chats. I'll get through some of them. Hit the like button as well, please, if you're watching the video. Obviously, horrendous result. But yeah, if you can hit the like button, that helps everyone out. Ryan R says it's the hope that kills FML. Yeah, exactly. Rune, Amram isn't ready for the Premier League, and this narrative is going to absolutely thrive after this as well. Not that it wasn't here before, I'm not blaming you, Rune. Let Shaw stink up the place for 98 minutes. We take off a forward, they put on a defender, 8 at the back, Ange let us sub first. I mean, them putting a defender on when they're defending isn't, it's not completely mind-boggling, is it? It makes sense. Steve Doyle says, if you back this manager, you're happy with continued mediocrity. Sell the whole squad if you want, but this coach deserves nothing. Failure. I mean, this again, we knew this would come. You knew this would happen. It's going to be as anti-Amram as you possibly can imagine now after this. Sorry, the chats are absolutely going wild. Apologies. I'll come back to those in just a second. Bumbilly1 says, so no barbecue? No, I think the club barbecue has been cancelled after that. FBF1 Sports says, unless the lot of them, useless the lot of them. If I'm Cunha, I'm cancelling the contract and staying at Wolves. Joey Bang says, Højlund has to be the first out the door. We're basically playing with 10 men when he plays. Onana has hands like Swiss cheese and needs to go. I think it's harsh on Onana tonight. I'm not denying that he's, I know you're not directly saying that goal was his fault, but I think he's caught out by a massive deflection from his own player, and the ball gets kicked in over the line. I don't know. Harsh Bade says, Amram, if he stays, will be under severe pressure along with the new players he brings in. A high-stress environment. Such situations have always led to disaster. Time is up. Scotty, I know you said before that you still back the manager, so I've got a frog in my throat here. I think the scenario that person described there is... I can see that unfolding.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we don't want it to happen and we back him, are you worried for Amram?
Well, it depends on what the board fear most, and is it the sort of noise and rhetoric that comes out of the fan base, or do they have a plan in place to make sure that we can ride out when any sort of rough time next season, and is he going to get the investment, in the summer so he can, he can do his job to the ability that he thinks he has with the United team. A lot of people seem to jump the gun and forget that Amram didn't want the job until the end of the season. He was forced, his hand was forced and took the job, and then when he's got there, he's like maybe not realised how bad some of the players are or what he was working with, and that's not to detract from him not making any mistakes with the team this season, because I think he has. It's a collective effort. Yep. But the noise will continue around him, because that's what football fans, in particular Manchester United fans, are fickle. But this now isn't going to be an overnight success, and the problem with Ineos now is we're in very much the same territory as we were with Ten Hag following the FA Cup win. Yep. Is that if they are going to keep Amram, I think they should. Yep. But if they are going to keep him, they're going to have to invest in players that he wants, that suits the system that he wants to play, which is very niche. If it doesn't work out with him, then they've got to get somebody else into, and then find someone else that either fits that, which is going to be hard to find, or the cycle continues again. So
I think but they've got to be aware of that, and it's we're looking at can we look at more Premier League proven players? Yep. Players of a better physical profile that will help lift this team that struggles. So I think, maybe learn from the fact that don't give the manager. I can't imagine we'd sign too niche for a manager going forward. I would like to think that strategy would change. Because it wasn't Ineos, was it, that signed for?
No,
Ten Hag. I think as well that this system. I think that I'm not saying it's the future of football.
I think it's coming back in a bit.
It's coming back in a lot. Wolves play a similar system. I think Palace will play 5 at the back.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon whatsoever to see that. The Real Madrid manager in Xabi Alonso plays 5 at the back. It's not this sort of archaic system that no one's seen for 20 years. If anything, it's having a resurgence. I don't think the system is the problem. Look at the amount of people we get in the final third. Look at the amount of people we have defending. It's not completely like at odds with everything everyone else is playing. We get 7 or 8 people in the final third when we're attacking. We get 7 or 8 people back when we're defending. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the quality of the players that's the problem. I don't think that just because they're wing backs, they're particularly any different to a fullback or a winger. Like I know that it's not the same, and I'm not saying that our players are amazing at doing it. Obviously, they're not. But I don't think that the system itself is the problem, or that the manager himself is the problem. Why did that system tear Man City to shreds? I know they were struggling themselves, but I just think that we keep going through these managers. They're good managers. You don't get to the top and win league titles and win second league titles and win cups all the time by being shit. Did Liverpool just happen to get the best manager in the Premier League last season? Or have they got a team that was pretty close anyway, and actually the fact that the rest of the league has shit themselves this season has helped them a lot? Like, I don't think Arne Slot is the best manager in the Premier League, but they've won the league. I think that Manchester United's problems are almost all, and not all because I think Amram has made mistakes, down to the level of the squad. I just think you put if Amram had come in as Liverpool manager this season, or Amram had come in at another club this season, the same things wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
I honestly, I know that
I just wonder if it saves us a bit of time, maybe, because by him coming in when he has done, when he didn't want to, there's no one could hide with pre-season. He doesn't have to look. He's seen people for what they are in the moment. He's already made a few big calls. You talked the other week about being brave. No one's getting a reprieve after tonight. It couldn't have been laid more bare, the problems that we have. And when he talks about being brave, is that that's not offloading Lindelof, is it?
No. It's big decisions.
Is he talking bigger decisions, which now
and maybe pushing it a little bit financially? Maybe instead of going for Delap, you go for Delap and Osimhen, or Delap and Gyökeres. Maybe it's not just a case of getting rid of Lindelof. It's a case of and I'm going to list a few here to save people criticising. Maybe you get rid of one of Mainu, Garnacho, Bruno, or a player that people like. That isn't just the obvious ones. Anyone can let Victor Lindelof's contract run out, and I'm not advocating getting rid of Bruno or Mainu or Garnacho directly, but I think that's what he's saying. I think, like you said, who wouldn't let Johnny Evans' contract run out? This is important. This is really important.
It's the small little. We always see a rebuild that needs to happen, and things. I don't think you're ever as far away in football as you think.
No, and it's worth remembering that. And I'm glad you've said that.
And I think sometimes we look at it and we think, okay, this is what we need to do this summer, and we always get through about 30% of what we of what we thought we needed, and it rumbles on into the next season. It's always but it's been getting worse and worse and worse actually on the pitch. So now you need to be as brave as ever with how you overhaul it.
It's like overhaul hallmark changes, and you're right. You might not be that far away. I think last season, did Forest not finish at a similar level to us in the league and signed a new goalkeeper and striker, and look where they've gone. So things can change rather quickly. But again, it's that first opening game of the season when United plays. He's got China new players. If he doesn't win that game, and then
what is the expectation for next season now? Then is it 15th? I don't think that's going to do it. Is it top half? Is it a meaneful challenge for European football?
I'm sure they've said top 6, haven't they? Is that right?
It's got to be minimal top 6.
But is that acceptable? Not acceptable as in, is that good enough? I mean, if you're Amram, you're going, what with these lot? Do you think a top 6 is realistic?
Depends on what happens in the summer, doesn't it? And what players they let go. I think we might be in for a surprise when you talk about like brave selling players, to be honest. And after a performance tonight, I don't. I'm not too like if Fernandes was sold in the summer, I would massively surprised, considering they've just lost 100 million, a prospective 100 million.
Yeah,
let me invest in new players.
let's have a look at some of these super chats. Thank you everyone for sending your chats in. FBF1 Sports, actually I've read that one already. Joey Bang says Hoyland has to be first out the door, and I've also read that. Burnside is back. I would pay double whatever Ole was on to bring him back to the club. Gone from 30 to 40 plus goal difference a season to minus goal difference every season. But look at what he had. He had an up-and-coming star in Mason Greenwood. It's not anyone's fault except his that he's not here anymore. He had Marcus Rashford doing what Marcus Rashford used to do, and he had a fit and informed Martial. And behind that, creating the chances, he had Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes. No wonder we scored more goals. We had better players. Like, would you swap that front three for Garnacho, Xerxes and Hoyland? No one in their right mind would do that. Samir Varma says, this is officially rock bottom. Get these players out now. Will Edmondson, thank you for gifting a Stretford Paddock membership. Thank you very much, mate. Craig says, folk are just giddy because Spurs broke their duck. Worst final I've ever seen. A garbage United team beat by a marginally less garbage Spurs team. I'm not even sure they were marginally less garbage. I just think, I don't know. Just that's how football goes. It's a game, innit? If you get the game right, you win. Tim Sim, no doubt 25-26 is going to be the season. We regress much more without Champions League. Bonus to get the players we need this summer. We are so screwed after the worst United season I've ever seen. Will Edmondson, this week was supposed to be positive. After a 10-year wait, I finally got a season ticket this year. The final was supposed to be the turning point. That's the risk, isn't it? Sorry, mate. Jibak says beyond the fact that we've signed Amorim mid-season, it'd be harsh not to give him a summer. Is there any reason that Amorim himself has given us reason since he arrived to consider not sacking him?
I think that's the wrong way to look at it. You know,
yeah,
really is. Like you've signed a really bright young coach that a lot of clubs were after, and I was really pleased when we got him because I feel like that's, it's nice to know you're still dining at that table. You can attract, someone like that. So, I wouldn't be rushing to look at him. It's the players just aren't good enough. You can sack Amorim, and who's going to get a tune out of these players and get them? Who's getting this team into the top six? Look at what that means to be in the top six. How often you have to win, how many goals you have to score, how you need to be able to go away from home and beat teams. Like, this team can't do that.
No, and me and Steve sat here at the start of last season, before the season started, and Steve said that our attack is one of the worst in the Premier League, and he got a lot of stick for it. I mean, no one's giving him stick for it anymore because he's repeated it since, and we've chatted about it so much, but it has held true. And it didn't necessarily take a genius, and Steve isn't a genius, I'm not saying that by any means, to work that out. We've let Marcus Rashford has been our best attacker over the last 5 years. Statistically, that's a fact. He's the only, he's got 130 goals for Man United, gone. Jadon Sancho cost 73 million and was one of the most exciting young players in Europe, gone. Anthony cost 90 million euros, gone. And then we've replaced him with Xerxes, who's a decent technical footballer but has never been a goal scorer, and the most unproven of strikers in Rasmus Højlund, and that's it. That is it. That is just horrific, and it doesn't. Look at the teams around us. We're recruiting from Wolves. United have been linked with players at Brighton and West Ham. Ipswich. We're linked with players who are getting relegated this season, and I'm not saying they're not good enough, but we can improve by getting relegated players at Manchester United. That shows you where we are. That's
the level, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not even just the strikers either. If you go beyond that, we've got players that are still learning their trade, and I think Højlund, for some extent, falls into this category because he should never have been a striker that's leading the line for Manchester United. But the same for Garnacho, still young, still learning his trade. Mainu, I'm a little bit older, but they're still learning their craft. Dorgu, who's our wing back, only 20 years old. But then you get the other end of the spectrum. You've got the likes of Eriksen, Casemiro, Lindelof, Johnny Evans. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's very little sort of balance there.
We need, I think
them leaders need to be able to contribute. They need to be key players.
Well, they're not
just key squad players good around the training ground. Need them on the pitch.
We need some 26, 27-year-olds that are driving us forward. We've got loads of super chats. Kyle Begg says, if your argument for the league is that we've been concentrating on the Europa, then you have to win this match. Losing 4 times to one team in a season shows you that Amorim cannot do it in the Premier League. I just...
It's too easy to say these after the fact. You could always lose that game today.
Finals are finals, aren't they?
Yeah.
Tommy McCartney says Bruno Fernandes is not a big game player, anonymous in both European finals. I think that's harsh. I thought he was brilliant in the FA Cup final last season, but I agree he was poor tonight. I'm not trying to argue something there that I don't believe. I think Bruno was poor. Steve Doyle says the best goals and assists in the league, playing at centre back. Clueless. Cooper Fokua. Pardon me. It says we can't talk about a lack of funds and then say this loss doesn't mean much. Champions League offers that and a draw for good new players. Yeah, this game means loads. I don't know anyone that's saying that this wasn't important tonight. Kurt Beaver, he deserves the sack. This system is the worst football I've ever seen. The players aren't 17th bad, embarrassing. Next, Everton celebrating not going down. Bumbilly1 says, screw it, I'm going to say it. Amrin might be dumb. Matty Gorman, does this mean that Gyökeres isn't coming now? Probably, but if you don't want to come, you can fuck off. Fitz, ground zero for United, heads have to roll now. There's loads of super chats, of course. Deadbug UK, poor final with two poor teams. The plus side, just more proof that we need to tear up this team. Side note, thanks, gents, for your coverage this season. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. We absolutely love it, although nights like this aren't quite as fun. Michael T says, Bruno needs to get sold ASAP, provides no service and loses the ball too much. Provides no service, mate. He's got 19 assists this season. He's had a bad game in a final that was a horrific game to play in for everyone involved. Yes, he was bad tonight. But to say he provides no service when he's literally created more chances than anyone in Europe's top 5 leagues over the last 5 seasons is just wrong. And I understand that we're going to get a lot of people hating Bruno and it was the last game and it's just happened, and I get it. But let's have a bit of perspective here. Honestly. Jasau Bengaboy, sorry, you haven't spoken about 10 minutes, but we've got loads of people calling in, messaging in. I would have liked to have won this game, but as Steve said in his previous video, could it be good without the Champions League for United, giving Ruben a full week to prepare for games? What do you reckon? It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you get more time to prepare. On the other hand, if it doesn't turn around quickly, no excuses.
We would have got our asses handed to us week in, week out in the Champions League, really, wouldn't it? I mean, the financial benefit aside, so he's been vocal a lot this season about not having enough time on the training field, but he's certainly going to get that, isn't he? Going to get 7 days between games.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Less Sunday games.
Yeah. That's true.
Take the win.
I've got a couple more super chats and then I want to hear from you guys again in just a second. Hey, it's your boy Gail. Hi, Gail. Would you rather have Højlund as your striker next season or Stevie Wonder as your butler, but he only serves hot soup? I don't know. Let's toss a coin on that one. Teeman says, perhaps this is a blessing in disguise. These absolute wallies don't deserve Champions League football. I hope some of them leave to play in it. Heaven soul, when I snuff it, I want Man United to carry my coffin so that these sods can let me down one last time. We need a major overhaul this summer. Trond, let's be honest, the players are not world class, but Amram has to go. The results aren't acceptable. A few people talking like that as well. Steve Doyle took us from 8th to 17th with a better squad. Not a better squad. I don't agree with that. Abhishek says it's time for Conte. Get him in. I think he's just signing with Juventus, isn't he? Hochi says, are we surprised at this result? I don't think we are. And Kai says, what's the point in sacking the manager? No manager nor their system is perfect, and none of them will elevate the performance of this team by miles. Successful clubs reap the benefits of patience. I think that's the important thing to remember. When you talk about the manager making mistakes, and he did make mistakes tonight potentially, or I can see what mistakes he may have made. No manager doesn't make mistakes. It's not unique to Amram in terms of making mistakes, is it?
We've signed someone we've brought someone who maybe isn't perfect.
Yeah.
No, I again, it's not something I would get sucked into. I think it's so easy to have this cyclical conversation where it's the manager, and it's been a steady decline for a long time. And I think in my mind, I drew a line in the sand when Ineos came in. I understood moving on from Ten Hag to bring their guy in, and now they've done that. Let's see what they're able to do and not react too much to short-term results. There's no doubt he'll be under a lot of pressure, but he should be under pressure. Anyone should be under pressure at United, and we'll have to start the season well.
I think that Ineos have got a hell of a job on their hands this summer, haven't they? Mike Kennedy, on a side note, thank you for your work. Thank you, lads. Thank you. And thank you for watching as well, of course. Steve Doyle, congrats, boys. We're now Leeds. Brian Kevill, just a reminder, he never wanted the job when he got it. Give him time. Stop the fast food football shit and trust the process. I agree. Clark Kent, Lenny Yoro can keep his head up. He was good tonight.
He was.
And he grew into the game. He was one of the few players that got better as the game went on. We've got a couple more super chats. Steve Dole says, amazing. Man United, an attacking team. Ruben's system is not us. The One Piece exists. Glad we lost some criminals. Don't deserve a 25% pay rise. Yeah, a lot of them would have got that if we'd have qualified for the Champions League. Hope Bruno leaves. He deserves more than this, says Magnus. Joe C says, I've never seen a team as soft as United. Once it became a fight, they were done. So disappointed. I can't believe they lost to Spurs. And Chris Christodoulou says, lads, I'm sorry, but Amorim needs to go. Before we go, Scotty.
Yep.
You said before you don't think the manager should leave. What would you say to people that think he should go, that are now saying that we've seen enough, he can't do it in the league, he can't get us over the line in finals, he's got to go? What would be your response to that?
My response would be he needs to have the tools or the players that for his system or the way his style of play. He didn't want the job when he signed in November, and you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, and it's a lot of fucking doubt. I'm not going to try and dress it up, but we can all see how bad the players are. He sees them week in, week out, and I think that we need to have better players underneath him. And then see where it is there. Because why not? Yeah. Otherwise, what was all this for?
Yeah, I completely agree.
I don't think being more pragmatic with this team does anything more than maybe get you to 9th. Yeah. You know, like there's no the other side of the coin isn't, you know, you could be successful with this team. I think regardless it needs big changes, and you know we've brought him in to do a job.
Yeah, I think there are managers in the world that would have finished higher in the league this season, undoubtedly. But would they still be here in 2-3 years playing their own football, or would they be playing the lowest common denominator stuff that gets good results out of a bad team?
But it's never going to get you challenging.
That's what Everton do. That's what Wolves do. That's what other teams do. You bring in the parachute manager to get them working hard and defending set pieces. But long term, that's not going to win you trophies. And if that's United's goal, United need a manager that's capable of winning 30 games a season, not 15.
Sometimes things get worse before they get better in life,
and it has got worse, hasn't
it?
Let's hope it doesn't get any worse.
At least we've got Sunday, but that doesn't exist in my
big game
mind.
Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. It's that 16th, 17th playoff. Brilliant. Thank you,
but
lads.
Chelsea don't get into Europe if we lose.
Oh, yeah, that could be fun. Thank you for joining us at home. Thank you for joining us here as well. We'll be hearing from Andy Tate and Stephen Howson in a few minutes as well. Thank you very much for joining us. Tottenham 1, Manchester United 0. We'll see you in a bit.